They left a cardboard box on the porch. My name was written in Sharpie, misspelled. Inside, a blanket I crocheted for my grandson. No phone call, no hug, no goodbye, just a note. Mom, we need space, you're becoming too much. I sat on the front steps in silence, watched them drive away. In the car I helped them buy. They thought I'd break, that I'd beg, that I'd vanish like old furniture pushed to the curb. But they forgot something. I kept the house, I kept the will, I kept receipts. They thought I was just a burden, but I was the backbone. And now, I'm back. I didn't cry when Thomas left. Not that first night, not even the second. What I remember most is how quiet the house felt. Not peaceful, not empty, just unfamiliar. Like someone had taken the soul out and left the structure standing. He didn't pack a suitcase, just grabbed a duffel bag. 2 shirts, a toothbrush, no apology, not even eye contact. He mumbled something about needing clarity, about both of us changing, and then walked out. The door didn't slam, it clicked shut, clean, cold, final. We'd been married 28 years. That's almost 3 decades of folding his laundry, warming up his soup when he got home late, rubbing his back when stress twisted up his shoulders. 28 Christmas trees. 28 anniversaries. A son raised. A mother buried. A mortgage paid down with equal parts sweat and sacrifice. But none of that seemed to matter when he moved into her apartment the next morning. Chloe. That was her name. She had once handed me hors d'oeuvres at his company party. "You're his wife?" she'd asked, smiling too wide. "You look so elegant. I love older women who age gracefully." I didn't catch the insult then. I just nodded, said thank you, tried to be polite. Turns out she wasn't a temp like he claimed. She wasn't helping on just one project. She was helping herself to my husband. My life. The ink on our divorce papers hadn't even dried. I was still putting toothpaste caps back on out of habit, still folding his socks, still sleeping on one side of the bed. I got the letter 3 days later. Pale pink paper, the kind you'd use for a baby shower invite. Neat cursive at the top. "Marla, please arrange a time to collect the rest of your belongings. Thomas and I are settling in, and we'd prefer no disruptions to our new routine. Weekday mornings are best. Kindly, Chloe Morgan." No dear. No sincerely. Just instructions. Like I was the help being told to clear out. I sat at the kitchen table with that letter for an hour. I remember the sunlight hitting the table just right, casting a shadow on the words. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but from something deeper. Something primal. Rage, maybe, or realization. He hadn't just replaced me, he erased me. And she had the audacity to pretend like I never existed. As if my entire life with him could be boxed up and scheduled away between 9 and 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. I stared out the window at the bird feeder I'd hung last spring. A cardinal landed on the edge, tilted its head, and flew off. It felt like a message. Like life didn't care if you were bleeding. Darius, our son, didn't know what to say. He was 26, torn. I could hear the conflict in his voice every time we spoke. "I don't want to pick sides, Mom." He said it over and over. Like neutrality was noble, like silence wasn't already a choice. I didn't argue with him. I just nodded and said, "I understand." But inside, I was breaking. Not loud, not fast, but quietly, like roots pulled from dry earth. That night, I went to our old bedroom, not to sleep. I couldn't. I just stood there. The closet was half empty, his shoes gone, but the indentation from his body was still on the mattress. I touched it, just once. Then pulled the sheets off and dumped them in the hamper like they were infected. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I didn't want to give them that satisfaction. What I did was quieter, sharper. I got a manila folder from the drawer where we kept our tax records. Inside was the deed to the house, my name, not just as a co-owner, as the buyer of record. I was the one who'd written the check for the down payment after working double shifts at the medical center. He'd been between jobs then. I covered us. Funny how people forget. The silence in that house grew heavier. It wasn't mourning, it was waiting, like the walls knew something was coming. I didn't respond to Chloe's letter. I didn't call Thomas. I didn't cry on the phone to my sister or post vague quotes on Facebook. Instead, I went to the mirror and looked at myself. Not at my hair or my face or the age in my eyes. I looked deeper. Past the lines and into the woman who'd survived things they didn't even know about. Losses, illness, nights working 14 hours and still packing school lunches at 6 a.m. I wasn't just a wife. I was a foundation. And foundations don't crack when the paint peels off. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, tucked it into my purse, not because I needed it, but because I wanted to remember exactly how they tried to dismiss me. A paper trail of arrogance. The next morning, I opened a new notebook. First page, in all caps. They thought I was a footnote. I'm the whole damn story. And then I called Cynthia. I woke up before the sun. Not because I had somewhere to be, but because my body was restless in a way I couldn't name. My eyes opened to the sound of nothing. No breathing beside me, no rustle of sheets, no slow creak of an old man stretching his back like he used to do every morning. Just me. And the weight of a house that no longer felt like mine, though I hadn't left it. I made coffee, but I didn't drink it. I let it sit on the counter, untouched, cooling beside the envelope from Chloe that I still hadn't thrown away. My hands moved without thought, folding dish towels, wiping a spotless counter, because doing kept me from thinking. But that morning, even doing wasn't enough. Something inside me itched. Not like anger, not yet. It was more like a question that had been ignored for too long. That's when I walked to the filing cabinet. Back in the hallway closet, behind the winter blankets and some faded board games, sat the cabinet Thomas never touched. We kept the real things there. Our tax returns, birth certificates, mortgage paperwork. I hadn't opened it in years. I didn't need to. We had already paid off most of the loan. The house was practically ours. That's what I used to say. I knelt down, pulled out the thick tan folder marked Property 2002, and laid it on the dining table. My pulse ticked in my ears. Inside were a stack of papers, most yellowing at the edges, others crisp from the refinances over the years. I flipped through them until I saw it, the original deed. My name, Marla E. Jameson. His name was there too, but beneath mine, a cosigner, not a sole owner. I ran my finger over the letters like they might burn. I could feel the shift happening inside me, slow at first, then sharp like a needle. I stared at the signature line. It was mine. The down payment had come from my savings, my father's inheritance, money I never touched until we found this house on a cul-de-sac with maple trees and a front porch I'd imagined grandkids running up one day. I still held the deed. And just like that, the silence around me stopped feeling like grief. It started feeling like strategy. I didn't react right away. I sat in it. Let the knowledge settle like dust in a sunbeam. I looked around the room differently after that. At the walls I painted, the shelves I hung, the curtains I hemmed by hand one night while Thomas snored in the recliner. This house had my fingerprints all over it. And they thought they could just send me packing with a pink note and a weekday window? No. I picked up the phone and called Cynthia. She was the kind of friend who didn't ask how I was. She asked where I was, what I knew, and what they did. She was also the kind of friend who'd been a real estate attorney for over 20 years and didn't tolerate bullshit. I told her everything, not with tears, just facts. Quiet, measured, unshakable. When I said, my name's still on the deed, there was a pause, and then she said, did he ever buy you out? No. Did you sign any transfer papers? Anything removing your ownership? No. Well then, Marla, she said, her voice low, you're still half owner. Legally, no one can take that from you without your permission. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. What does that mean exactly? It means, she replied, you don't have to ask. You can file for a partition action. You can force a sale, or you can make them buy you out. But here's the truth. They're living in a house that still belongs to you. I leaned back in the chair. The coffee on the counter had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. Bitterness didn't bother me now. There was a long silence between us. Not awkward, heavy, real. And then I said it, let's do it. She didn't ask if I was sure. She knew me. Knew that when I spoke softly, it wasn't because I was scared. It was because I was already moving. By the end of the week, Cynthia had drawn up everything. I didn't tell Darius. Not yet. I wasn't ready for the guilt in his eyes. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted resolution. I wanted control. And most of all, I wanted them to feel it. The shift. The weight of consequences. I didn't slam doors or leave voicemails. I signed papers. I mailed certified copies. I became very, very quiet. And in that silence, something powerful happened. The narrative changed. I wasn't the ex-wife loitering in memory. I was a legal co-owner reclaiming her rights. It was subtle at first. A look from the clerk when she handed me the sealed envelope. Respect. Recognition. Power, even. I walked out of the courthouse with my chin a little higher. Not because I was vengeful, but because I remembered something they forgot. I never gave up that house. They just assumed I did. And assumptions, I've learned, are dangerous things, especially when made about women who've lived entire lives swallowing pain just to keep the family from cracking. We crack now. And what pours out isn't weakness, it's fire. Let them hang their art on my walls. Let them cook in my kitchen. Let them laugh in my living room. Because now, every step they take echoes on ground they never owned. Not truly. And soon the walls will close in. But me, I'll be standing at the center, holding the deed, holding the key. And this time, I won't be asking for permission. I didn't dress up. No lipstick, no earrings, just jeans, a navy sweater, and the same boots I used to wear when raking leaves in that front yard. There was no fanfare, no warning, no text or polite reply to the letter that still sat wrinkled in my kitchen drawer. This wasn't about making a scene. This was about reminding the house who still belonged to it. The key was heavier than I remembered. Maybe because I hadn't touched it in months. Maybe because the weight of it now meant something different. I stood outside the door for a moment, letting my fingers rest on the brass knob. The porch was spotless. The welcome mat had been replaced. It used to say, "Home is where the heart is." Now it said, "Good vibes only." I almost laughed. The key slid in smooth. He hadn't changed the locks. I opened the door and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Something artificial and lemony. The kind of scent that tried too hard. Like those air fresheners people use when they're afraid the truth might seep through the walls. I paused in the entryway. The floorboards creaked the same way they always had, right under the coat rack. They'd covered it with a rug now. I could still hear it. Everything looked curated, like someone had flipped through a magazine and copied the layout. There were throw pillows that said things like "Love Wins" and "Live, Laugh, Love" in glittery font. The walls had been painted beige, soft, sterile, forgettable. My gallery wall was gone. No baby photos, no anniversary pictures, no family at all. Just a canvas print of a beach sunset where my son's kindergarten painting used to hang. I walked further in, slow and steady. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of a dryer tumbling somewhere upstairs. The kitchen hit me harder than I expected. My mason jar collection was gone. The tea rack I built during quarantine, replaced with a smoothie blender and rows of matcha tins. The kitchen island, the one Thomas and I refinished by hand over 2 weekends, was covered in quartz now. White, gleaming, cold. And then I saw her. Chloe came down the stairs barefoot, wearing one of Thomas's old flannel shirts like a nightgown. Her hair was up, messy in a way that wanted to be sexy but looked careless. She froze when she saw me. The mug in her hand, probably mine, stopped midair. For a moment, neither of us said a word. Then her voice, shaky but sharp. "What are you doing here?" I held up a folded printout of her letter, the one she sent me like she was HR and I was an employee on probation. "I came to get my things," I said, voice flat, steady, "per your request." Her mouth tightened. "You were supposed to schedule a time. We asked for boundaries." I walked past her, calm, deliberate, like I was walking through a museum of my former life, now badly staged by people who didn't know the meaning behind what they'd thrown away. "As long as my name's still on the deed," I said, not turning. "I come and go as I please." She didn't follow at first. I think she was too stunned. Or maybe waiting for Thomas to appear and rescue her from the reality of legal ownership. I went upstairs. The guest room had been turned into a home office. My sewing machine was gone. My books, too. Replaced by white furniture, mood boards, and something that looked like a ring light. I opened the closet. A few of my storage bins were still there, pushed into the back like an afterthought. I pulled them out one by one. My mother's quilt, a stack of photo albums, a jewelry box I hadn't opened in years. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And I wasn't leaving anything behind this time. Chloe appeared in the doorway eventually. She crossed her arms, tried to look intimidating in bare feet and borrowed plaid. "You're making this more difficult than it needs to be." I didn't answer. I just packed. She lingered, hovering, breathing louder than necessary. Then, under her breath, just loud enough to hit. Pathetic. I stopped, not quickly, not dramatically, just still. I turned, looked her in the eyes. "Excuse me?" She squared her shoulders. "You couldn't keep him, so now you're playing these little games. Jealousy isn't a good look. I blinked. Once? I'm not playing games, I said, and better doesn't last. Her cheeks flushed. What's that supposed to mean? But I was already turning back to the box, sliding the lid over my memories, securing them with tape like closing a wound. I carried the box downstairs. Chloe didn't stop me, didn't offer help, didn't speak again. She just watched. And I let her. I let her see the stillness in my body, the way my spine didn't bend anymore, the way I walked with something she couldn't buy. At the front door, I paused. I won't be coming back, I said. She looked relieved. Good. I met her eyes one last time. Not because you pushed me out, I added, but because I've already taken back what matters. I stepped onto the porch. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the yard. I looked at the spot where I used to plant tulips every spring. They were gone now, dug up, replaced with a decorative gravel patch and a lawn ornament shaped like a flamingo. How fitting. I put the box in the back seat of my car and sat there for a while with the engine off. Breathing. Not crying, not fuming. Breathing. The kind of breath that comes right before the storm hits the shore. And I wasn't running anymore. I was the tide. They thought I'd walk in and fall apart. But I walked in with my key. Calmly. And I left without saying goodbye. Because this time, silence was the loudest thing I owned. The letter went out on a Monday. Certified. Tracked. Signed for. No emojis, no smiles, no passive-aggressive footnotes. Just legal language sealed in a crisp envelope that carried more weight than any argument I'd ever win with words. Monica had it drafted, reviewed, and filed with surgical precision. Her tone was calm when she called to confirm it had been received, but I could hear something behind it. Anticipation. The kind that rises before thunder. I didn't call Thomas. I didn't warn him. There would be no discussion, no negotiation, no soft landings. He would open that envelope and see the words, Partition Action, stamped above my name. His name listed beside mine. Not above, not instead, equal, undeniable. I imagined him reading it at the kitchen table, my kitchen table, while sipping coffee in a mug I bought from a roadside stand in Asheville 10 years ago. Maybe Chloe would read it first. Maybe she'd see the signature and feel the chill crawl up her back before she even made it to the second paragraph. I hope they read it together. I hope their smiles cracked at the same time. He called 2 days later. I let it ring. 5 times. Voicemail. The message was careful. Marla, I got something from a lawyer. I think we need to talk. This doesn't have to be ugly. Let's be civil. We've been through a lot. I didn't respond. I poured myself a glass of water, sat by the window, watched the shadows shift across the hardwood floor of my rental. Everything in this place was simple, small, and mine. Nothing borrowed, nothing betrayed. The second voicemail came that evening. You don't have to do this. Chloe's really upset. She doesn't feel comfortable with this kind of energy around the home. We want to build something fresh. The home. They were still calling it a home. But homes aren't built on theft. They're built on sacrifice. And I was done giving without consent. I let Monica handle the correspondence. Every email, every form, every question that came stamped with desperation and laced with entitlement. They tried to stall. Said they needed time. Said they might buy me out. But they didn't have the money. Not with Chloe out of work and Thomas's salary stretched thin by mortgage payments and now legal fees. I watched it unravel from a distance. Quietly. The way fog lifts off a lake, slowly exposing everything beneath. 3 weeks in, a for sale by owner sign appeared on the front lawn. A white rectangle, hastily propped up with wooden stakes, as if urgency could mask the fear. I didn't drive by. I saw it in the photo Monica texted me from her car. It was grainy, but I recognized the desperation in the font they used for the phone number. It looked handwritten, almost pleading. They tried to sell it quietly, privately, avoiding realtor fees. Avoiding me, but the market didn't care about shortcuts. Neither did Monica. She made a few calls. By the following week, a new sign stood in its place. Clean. Bold. With a name I recognized from years back, a woman who'd helped a friend sell her home during a divorce. A fair agent. No backroom deals, no favoritism. She knew who I was, and more importantly, she knew who still owned half the house. Thomas texted again, this time softer. We need to talk about staging. Can we leave your things in the house until after the photos? I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, lit a lavender candle, and wrote checks to pay off 2 of my credit cards. With my name on the account. my money, my control. The silence bothered them. That much was clear. Chloe started posting cryptic quotes online. Things like, "Some people don't know how to let go," or "Bitterness only hurts the one who holds it." Her captions were cluttered with hashtags. Healing, rise above, peace over drama. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But then I remembered the letter. The pink one. The one that called me an interruption. And I let the sympathy evaporate. The house went on the market officially in week 5. The showings began. Strangers walking through rooms where I had once kissed a sleeping baby's forehead, where I had scrubbed blood out of a rug after Darius fell off his bike, where I had once sat on the floor and held Thomas's hand when his father passed. They covered those memories with throw pillows and scented candles. But I knew, the walls knew, and soon so would everyone else. A full-price offer came in 10 days later. No contingencies, all cash. A young couple, newlyweds, expecting their first child. They wanted a fast close, 2 weeks. I said yes, without hesitation. Thomas called again. "Are you really going to let strangers erase everything? This was our life, this house. This isn't just real estate, it's personal." And that was the moment I realized something. He still thought this was a negotiation, that I was punishing him, that I was wounded and acting out. But I wasn't acting. I was executing, with the same hands that raised a son, with the same voice that used to soothe his anxiety, with the same mind that had once kept our finances alive while he fumbled his way through job after job. I was never vindictive. I was exact. The closing date was set. They had 14 days to vacate. 14 days to box up the curated life they tried to build on bones they didn't lay. Monica sent me the updated documents in a folder thick with signatures and approvals. I read every page, twice, then once more. And when I was done, I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even sigh. I simply closed the folder and said aloud, to no one, "That'll do." 2 days before closing, Thomas showed up at my rental. I didn't invite him in. He stood on the doorstep looking smaller, paler, like he hadn't slept in days. He rubbed the back of his neck and said he needed a favor. Just a little help, just something to get them started again. A loan, a bridge, something temporary. I stared at him. "Excuse me?" His voice cracked. "We didn't think you'd go this far. We thought you'd let it go." I shook my head slowly. "You thought I'd let you go," quietly. He dropped his eyes to the ground. The silence between us stretched, heavy, embarrassed, final. And when he finally looked back up, I could see it. The moment he realized, she hadn't just filed a lawsuit. She'd set fire to the myth that she was ever disposable. That's what he lost. Not the house, not the money, but the illusion that he could take everything and still be seen as a man who had given more than he stole. He walked away without another word, and I didn't close the door until he was gone from view. Because some silence isn't awkward, it's earned. And some strikes don't need to be loud, they just need to land. I didn't attend the final walkthrough. Monica offered, but I declined. I didn't need to see them one last time, gathering the remnants of their curated dream and stuffing it into cardboard boxes. I'd already seen everything I needed to see. Every apology that never came, every delusion they wrapped themselves in, every silence they mistook for surrender. The house closed in 2 weeks, just like we agreed. The buyers were gracious, excited, respectful. A young couple, newly married, expecting a baby in the spring, they sent a thank you note after closing. Handwritten, said the garden would become a vegetable patch. The back office, a nursery. That made me smile. That house deserved laughter again. It deserved a kind of love that didn't walk in with entitlement and exit through betrayal. I didn't drive by. I didn't peek through windows. I didn't linger in the driveway like some ghost desperate to be remembered. I let it go. With finality. With precision. With peace. I wasn't walking away from the house. I was walking into myself. I moved into a quiet condo in Santa Fe. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, clean lines, big windows. Sunlight poured in every morning like a promise I no longer needed to chase. The view wasn't grand, but it was mine. It faced a small courtyard filled with lavender and marigolds and hummingbirds that didn't care what I had lost, only that I showed up to notice them. I unpacked slowly, 1 box a day. No rush, no pressure, no voice reminding me that I was being too sentimental or too slow. I hung pictures with care. Photos of my parents, my son, the version of me that existed before marriage turned into duty. I left space on the walls, not because I was missing anything, but because I was making room for whatever came next. I deactivated my social media, closed the accounts, let the digital world forget me. I stopped going to the church where whispers had followed me like smoke for months. I didn't make an announcement, didn't write a farewell post. I simply vanished. Some people called, some didn't. The ones who mattered already knew where I was. The rest never really saw me anyway. Every morning I woke up without dread. That was new. I went to the farmer's market, bought lemons, lavender soap, fresh bread. The vendor called me Miss Foster, and I liked that. Clean, no baggage, no prefix of someone else's last name, just mine. I volunteered twice a week at the library, helped a group of women, most of them older, learn how to navigate the internet. It felt fitting. Teaching others how to log in while I had just logged out. They didn't know my story. I didn't offer it. But every now and then one of them would look at me in that quiet way women do when they recognize survival in someone's eyes. They'd nod back. No words, just understanding. One day, Monica signed me up to speak at a women's seminar. Didn't ask, just texted me the time and place. Just tell your story, she said. You'd be surprised how many women need to hear it. I hesitated. I wasn't a speaker. I wasn't polished. I was just a woman who'd been broken open and stitched herself back together, piece by piece, with thread made of grit and grace. But I went. I stood in a room full of women with tired eyes and strong backs. Women who had carried things they never spoke of. I didn't read from notes. I didn't rehearse. I just told the truth. Not the version you share over coffee. The version you whisper into your pillow when you think no one will ever hear. I told them about the days I spent eating dinner alone while another woman used my silverware. About how I was asked to leave like a guest overstaying her welcome. About how silence, when chosen with intention, becomes the sharpest tool you own. I told them how I filed, how I waited, how I watched the people who discarded me beg for the very stability they once mocked. When I finished, there was no applause, just stillness. Then one woman, mid-60s, gray curls, hands that trembled when she stood, came up and hugged me. She whispered, "You reminded me I'm not too late." That moment stayed with me longer than the court papers. Longer than the checks, longer than any man ever had. Later that night, I sat on my patio. The sky was pink, humming with the last light of day. I opened a fresh journal. Not the old one filled with entries that sounded like please. This one was untouched, clean. On the first page I wrote, "This isn't a second chapter. This is a new book." 2 weeks later, I donated $50,000 from the house sale to a women's legal fund. No name, no plaque, no photo op. Just a wire transfer and a note that read, "For the women who don't yet know they're allowed to fight back." The director later told Monica that the money helped 3 women file for freedom. 2 of them won custody. All of them walked away safer than before. I didn't tell anyone, not even Darius. He started calling more. Not often, but enough. He invited me to dinner one night at a small place near the marina. He looked older, softer, less sure of himself. We sat outside, shared bread and silence. Then he said, "Thank you for not letting him get away with it." I didn't cry. I just nodded, said, "I didn't do it to punish him. I did it so the next woman like me doesn't feel like she has to disappear." He offered his guest room, said we'd find me a better place together. I smiled, shook my head. "I already have something better," I said. Peace. One afternoon, while picking up a new plant for my patio, I saw Thomas. He was sitting on a bench outside the pharmacy, shoulders slumped, eyes lost, shirt wrinkled. He stood when he saw me, said he didn't want to fight, just wanted to talk. "I didn't think you had it in you," he said. I tilted my head. "What exactly did you think I had in me?" He shrugged. "I thought you'd be too tired." That landed, because I had been tired of shrinking, tired of performing composure, tired of being a background character in a life I built. But tired isn't the same as done. I looked him in the eyes. "You miscalculated." He told me Chloe left, said she couldn't handle the fallout, said he embarrassed her, said she gave up everything for a man who couldn't keep a roof over her head. I didn't flinch. I just said, "She should have read the fine print." He looked like he wanted to say more. I didn't wait. I turned, walked away. When I got home that night, I poured a glass of red wine, sat in my kitchen, the one with no echoes, no memories I didn't choose, and turned on the radio. It played something soft, something old. I hummed along. The mug I drank from said unbothered, empowered, paid in full. A gift from Monica. And every time I sip from it, I remember. They thought I was done. But I wasn't done. I was just getting started. In life, there are moments when silence becomes the only language left to speak. Not because we don't have anything to say, but because we've said it all. We've given the best of our years, our energy, our love, and sometimes we're still treated like we don't belong. Like our presence is an inconvenience, like our worth faded with time. But here's the truth. We don't lose value just because someone else stops recognizing it. Being discarded does not mean you are disposable, and being forgotten does not mean you are forgettable. If you've ever found yourself in a chapter like this, left behind, overlooked, pushed out of your own story, then I want you to hear me now, clearly. You are not done. You still hold power. You still hold wisdom. You still hold the right to write your own ending. This story isn't just about property or paperwork. It's about reclaiming dignity. It's about showing the world, and more importantly, yourself, that age does not mean weakness. That betrayal does not mean defeat. That starting over isn't failure, it's freedom. So what's the lesson? It's this. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to fight loud to fight well. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is move in silence, protect your peace, and make decisions that serve you, not the version of you others expect to control. And you can apply this today. Start by remembering your name, your worth. Look at what's yours, whether it's a house, your voice, your time, or simply your truth. And ask, am I giving it away too easily? If the answer is yes, take a step back. You don't need permission to reclaim your space. You just need the decision to no longer shrink. Maybe it's finally filing that paper. Maybe it's setting a boundary with someone who takes too much and gives too little. Maybe it's calling that lawyer. Or maybe it's just sitting in your own home, sipping tea, and knowing, without needing anyone to confirm it, that you have nothing left to prove. You are enough, not because someone stayed, but because you did. And sometimes, peace is not what you find at the end of the storm. It's what you build after it. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to reclaim your worth after being dismissed or betrayed? Share your experience in the comments below, or even just a few words to remind someone else that they're not alone. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or if you believe someone out there needs to hear it, please consider subscribing to our channel. We tell stories that speak to the heart, to the healing, and to the quiet power of those who've lived enough to know what truly matters. And if you feel inspired to support us in continuing to share these voices, you're welcome to donate through the link below. Only if it feels right for you. Thank you for being here. And remember, your silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's the loudest legacy you can leave behind.